Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott MacKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, welcome to Industrial Talk, a platform that is dedicated to industrial professionals all around the world. You're bold, you're brave, you dare greatly, you innovate. You're solving problems each and every day. You're making the world a better place. That's why we celebrate you on Industrial Talk. And we are brought to you by those wonderful people at Siemens. Siemens Smart Infrastructure as well as grid software. Go to Siemens.com. Go to Siemens.com. Great people, great company, great solutions. Siemens.com. We're broadcasting on site, DistribuTech, Dallas, Texas. And I got to tell you, if you're in the utility space, if you're in the distribution, transmission, equipment, asset management, the cool kids hang out here. You need to put this on your calendar, make it happen. If you're not here this year, put it on the calendar. It's getting bigger, stronger, faster. You get to meet great people. Tom is in the hot seat. Kurtz, last name. Hexagon's the company. Let's get cracking. Yeah. You having a good conference?
I am, Scott. Thank you so much.
Your pen, man.
Thank you very much. I worked hard on that. And thank you for the invitation. I couldn't have, I'm not going to even try, but I couldn't have said it as well as you just did in terms of the DistribuTech. It's fantastic being here.
It is.
It is. There's so much to see. Like it's suddenly it's 3 o'clock and day 2, and I feel like I just got here. There's so many things to go see, so many people to talk to, and I've been able to do that, and I appreciate one of those people being you. So I'm excited to be here.
It's an insane market.
It really is. And you see how diversified it is.
It is.
When
it's insane.
You walk, you see trucks, you see electrical poles, you see software. And all of the above is here. And people are here for different reasons, but they're all related.
They are, and I get dazzled by the fact that me being a recovering transmission lineman, I'm very linear in my knowledge of the utility space, right?
Okay.
Power, transmission, distribution, on down to the customers and using it. Here it's completely blown up. You get the standard stuff, that's fine, but all of the other ancillary solutions about making the grid smarter, more efficient, driving it out, and then of course the demand for power is going through the roof. What do we do? It's way above my pay grade.
Indeed, it is, and you know it's interesting. You touched in your opening soliloquy there. You mentioned asset management.
Did you mentioned just say soliloquy.
Did I say
multi-syllable
that right?
word.
Yeah. I think I pulled a muscle, but we won't.
I did.
I think I'll be okay. I hope I used it right.
Yeah.
When my wife's here, I'm the numbers guy. I usually did I say that?
Oh, yeah.
That's not really an English word.
Yeah.
But I like how you tied the business functions of transmission, distribution with the asset side of it. The uptime, and not only the uptime, but the regulatory considerations that the utilities companies have to go through every so many years, and how can asset management help them with that? How can that help them with their overall strategic planning around that? I mean, that's something we're seeing here a lot today. We see a lot at Hexagon about that as well.
See, what's interesting, and we'll get to your verbal stat card around the corner here, but what fascinates me and it's easy from an asset management perspective to look at spinning equipment. You see it, it's working, and you get your generating assets, you can see it, it's fine, you can pull data off of that. Many of the assets that exist within a utility, you don't see it moving. It's moving, but you can't see it moving.
Yeah.
And then of course it's how do you properly track the health of that asset in a way that makes sense. And that's always been a challenge, like a transformer. Well, there's the transformer.
Yeah.
What's
it? Is it humming? Does that mean it's good or bad?
Yeah, you don't know. No. You have no clue.
It is.
And you're not pulling the dissolved gases out of it. There's just a ton of stuff.
It's interesting. Yeah, no, I agree with that, and so I'll build on that because so I've been in asset management for a number of years, and a customer years ago said this to me, and maybe we've talked about it before, I always use this example where customers say, I've been maintaining my equipment for years. I'm always going to want to maintain my equipment, but I want to go more than that. I don't want to just maintain the equipment. I want to manage the entire life cycle of my assets. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, maintaining the equipment, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to create maintenance requests. You have to be able to schedule and dispatch technicians. You have to be able to execute the work. But further upstream, what you just talked about, getting into, hey, can I be more proactive about this? Can I manage the reliability in a more predictive way, more prescriptive way? And that's when you start getting into moving from really enterprise asset management, those maintenance considerations, to asset performance. How do I want to actually look at the reliability? How do I want to look at the risk and criticality? What happens with consequence of failure? Not just does an asset fail, but what's the consequence of that failing? And maybe I care more about some than others because the consequence is higher. So it starts getting at that. I don't want to just manage. I don't want to just maintain my equipment. I want to manage the entire life cycle. And how strategic can I get with that asset strategy up front?
Yeah, but what is a challenge within a utility environment? First off, it's sort of, and I don't want to minimize the complexity of a manufacturing environment, but a manufacturing environment has walls.
Yeah.
There it is. It's pretty clean and it's like, here it is, got it. But in the utility world, that have assets that are 50, 60, sometimes 70 years plus age, and it's all over whatever their service territory, to be able to do an asset criticality type of analysis, I don't even, it's like, yeah, that transformer's pretty important. It's going to that manufacturer or whatever. Take us through that.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. This is where it, to me, it gets pretty exciting because I've been in software and software consulting most of my career, and you hear in different capacities the phrase, how do I move from strategy to execution? How do I go from strategy all the way through to execution? Because I've met people with fantastic strategies that are horrible at executing, and I've met the reverse, right? I can execute the heck out of this, no idea if it's important or not.
Yeah.
Right. So you really do have to optimize and marry those two together. And so the way we see that happening is, and this is an interesting debate out there that we see. So I think historically EAM has been there more. The ability to do that maintenance execution has been there longer. So a lot of companies started there. And there's this, I think, misperception in the market where I can't do the other strategic piece until I'm really good at this first piece. They're not linear, in my opinion. They're related in the sense of, okay, maybe you've been doing maintenance for a while. Don't not do the strategy because you feel like there's 30% more efficiency you can get on the execution side. They can work together because what you can start to, there's different personas that might start caring about it. You might have maintenance schedulers, planners, techs on the maintenance side, but you might have reliability engineers who you can bring in to say, how do I want to look at the asset strategy? So the risk and criticality of how do I segment my assets? If I have 1,000 classes of assets, how do I segment those to say, okay, these 20% are the really big ones. Why are they the big ones? Well, because they're expensive. I don't carry spare parts on hand. Why else are they? Because the consequence of failure is so severe. Okay, people get hurt or production goes down. Whatever your component of severity is. So you can start to look at all that. There's no reason not to be doing that at the same time you're executing the heck out of it, if you will, right? So the idea is, how can I do both? Think of an XY axis, right? And one is asset performance, and the other is maintenance efficiency. I don't want to be just high on one and low at the other, right? I want to be high on both. I want to be in that upper right of that XY coordinate. So if I can do that, I'm optimizing my strategy with my execution, and people can be doing that now. They don't have to wait until they reach 100% on their execution strategies, or execution processes, because guess what? You probably won't ever reach 100%. And so, if that's all you wait for, then you're missing an opportunity to create efficiencies on another set area.
It sort of smacks of change management too. So it's a human equation.
I'll buy that. It absolutely.
Because how does Hexagon sort of help facilitate that? You got the technology. The technology is brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a phenomenal platform. But
appreciate that.
But the human element and getting people to properly use it and embrace it, and I'm sure, because I'm a recovering one, I know that this is how we always done it.
Yeah.
How does Hexagon help with that?
So I think recognition is, what's the phrase? Recognition is part of the road to recovery, right? If a company, first of all, recognizes what you just stated, that it's not just about deploying a new software solution and magic will happen. There are human considerations there, and so you want to look at that change management component. So what does that look like to be able to look at it? Well, first of all, I think it starts in the design positioning process up front. If I'm walking in from Hexagon and I'm talking to you about the value that I think you can achieve, during that early discussion process, we better be having that level of business value. We shouldn't just be having a technical deployment conversation or getting online with your architects. I want to be online. I want to be interacting with your business leaders as well, your functional leaders, to say, how is this going to impact the business processes that you're trying to drive to? So now you're getting the right people from the get-go in the conversation. Okay, this is great. Let's move forward. Let's start deploying this. Now, as part of the deployment, you have to consider the adoption side of it. And you call it change management, call it adoption, but you want to look at it from a usability and user adoption perspective. So how do you do that?
Huge.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, you take a situation where I'm a crew, and I have my truck, my other truck. I've got assets that are specific to me running a crew, and I'm going out to a specific location. And how does the EAM platform help facilitate, make that life easier? The way it normally was somebody give me a work order. It's a piece of paper. Somebody said, go out to this location on the corner of Main and Elm, and then that's the construction. Make sure that you get the right the material necessary to affect whatever the job, right?
Yep.
How does EAM sort of streamline that miserable task?
Fantastic question. I'm going to break that answer down in 3 or 4 buckets. So to Hexagon, a strong EAM, so at the base of any EAM solution, a strong EAM solution is going to have strong work management processes. So what you just said, the ability to open a maintenance request, have that request progress to a work order, that work order being planned by the maintenance planner, eventually scheduled, eventually assigned, techs are dispatched. The ability to execute across all that work management has to be there and has to be really solid. Second piece is the ability to link that to asset hierarchies. So I want the overall assets that I have. I want to know functional location of where they are. I want to be able to know the classes that they're a part of and how I want to execute against that. Now, I can store that in an EAM system. I can store that in an ERP system. And kind of different customers are going to look at that differently. We can store that in Hexagon EAM, and we do for a lot of our customers. Third piece, you also touched on making sure parts are available. That's getting into spare parts management. That's getting into inventory management and inventory planning. Not every EAM system has that, because some EAM systems maybe have a closer tie to the larger ERP narrative, and so inventory can be their MRO is handling slightly different. But I like a lot of our customers like that you can have inventory right a part of that. Those are kind of some of the big pieces, but a couple other things I want to throw in there just from those are more process and functionality considerations. A couple technology considerations as well. One is you mentioned, hey, I've got an asset out in the field and I need to go out, and what's it going to look like when I get there? What if you could visualize, while you're still in the EAM system, visualize either the planner or the tech, visualize the facility that asset's a part of, and be able to look at a 3D point cloud solution rendering that facility. So something that was captured by reality capture hardware, and be able to render a point cloud solution that's ingested into EAM, associate all your assets with points in that point cloud, and be able to say, now that utility pole that you're going to go out to in a certain area, we did scans of that, so I can tell you exactly what the area around it looks like, and I can point you to exactly where it is. If I'm a tech, I can actually go do that. So the ability, something we call Reality Viewer in our EAM, has the ability to do that, and that's why companies are really excited about that.
That is cool, but boy, talk about a heavy lift. Because let's just say I can go down to transmission, and those are big objects, and here's a tower. look at it. That's fine. That's good. And then when you start talking about, let's say, a metropolitan area, where I worked, now you have transmission poles, right? Pole after pole after pole after pole. Then you have joint pole construction, where you have distribution and transmission all at once. And then you have distribution. And then to be able, distribution, come on. There are alleys and they're everywhere.
You are recovering at
I would just like my ears are bleeding inside these headphones, because that would be great to be able to have that visual representation, but that is a heavy lift.
It is. Now, so we're gonna add something to the equation here. So you're right, as you start to get into, especially in the utilities world. So I use the term facility. So now you might be in one building with 4 walls. To your point, now you get into the utility world. Now you're getting outside of those facilities. You're getting into open space. You're getting into acreage and miles and what have you. So that's
right of ways. It's like goes forever.
Yeah, exactly. So that is now okay. Now we're going to shift from an EAM conversation to a very related networking conversation, asset networks. And so, what if everything we just talked about, you had then the ability to link that EAM system to a network design and operation system. In other words, you had a network within a certain range, the acreage that we're talking about. If you're able to map all that in a design tool, and you have all your access points and your connection points from access to access, and so you're able now to go into a certain GPS area, you tie it into a GIS type of view, but you're doing it for a broader perspective of just GIS. You're looking at it from overall asset management. How does that tie into the design on the front end? How does that tie into operations on the back end once it's actually in production? The ability to be able to do that is something called Hexagon Networks. So we have a second product called Hexagon Networks. It is something that today works with Hexagon EAM. Where we're going with it is absolutely tighter integration and the ability to be able to do exactly what you just said, because that's the scenario how we see it playing out. We want to be able to not just visualize it within a facility. We want to understand the network as outside of the facility as well.
One last question, because
please.
One last question about keeping current with that information.
Sure.
Like, okay, so you invest time, energy, and effort. You're doing a great job. You're mapping this bad boy out, and I'm on my pad, and I'm like, yeah, check it out. There it is. That construction. Look at that. There was a dog there at that. But whatever. But then construction just continues. You have to have that workflow to be able to, new construction, do this, do that, and be able to get it back into the system.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touch on a couple things. So I think one is data management is a big part of that. So being able to manage the data, there's all kinds of expressions that you've heard, and the new oil and all those kind of things. It is a commodity, and you need to be able to manage that. And that's a great example. You need to, whether it be your asset information in your EAM system, whether it be the overall assets that you have in your broader network, utility network, communication, fiber network, etc. You have to be able to do those things. So managing data and having that underlying data layer is an important thing, and I definitely want to see that. The other piece, you mentioned construction too. I mean, that's a third product we need to throw out there. Hexagon Ecosys is a project portfolio planning product. So it's the ability during construction projects to be able to tie in how are we doing capital planning, how are we doing the overall project planning of this engagement. So now you have the construction side of it. How are we building that out? How are we tracking to that? How does that tie into some of the other things we talked about? So, I mean, we could go on and on. There's an investment planning side of it, but you know what? I like you that too much, Scott. I won't talk your ear off today.
I love it. I love it. All right. How do people get a hold of you?
A couple ways. Probably the easiest way, though, is LinkedIn. I'm Tom Kurtz, LinkedIn.
Thanks. That's what I like. Was he giving you the wrap-up?
He was. Very politely, though.
No, it wasn't. I saw him off the corner of my eye, and he's wrapping his arms around.
That's why I don't listen to him very much.
Like he was throwing out his shoulder. He's going to get a rotator cuff problem. Yeah. His name is Tom. Reach out. That's a must. It is. He's got it. His sidekick. whatever.
It keeps me honest.
Yeah, that's right. All right, we're broadcasting right from DistribuTech here in Dallas, Texas. We are brought to you by those wonderful people at Siemens. Siemens Smart Infrastructure and Grid Software. Go out to Siemens.com, Siemens.com. Great people, great company, great solutions. You will not be disappointed. All right, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Yeah. I geek out on anything that's asset management, reliability, maintenance specific, but I amp it up even more so when we start talking about applying those tools and techniques and strategies to the utility, power gen, transmission space. Love it all. Tom Kurtz, Hexagon. I tell you, Hexagon Asset Life Cycle Intelligence is the platform. Powerful solutions for managing your assets in the utility, transmission, and generation space. It's very cool. All right. We were at DistribuTech. That was a great conference. Put that on your calendar. If you are in that market, it's a must-attend event. You get to meet people like Tom. All his contact information out on Industrial Talk, so reach out, find out more. All right, be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with Tom. Change the world. We're going to have another great conversation coming from DistribuTech shortly, so stay tuned.